District 5 is everything northeast of the Beltway, up the 29 corridor, all the way to the Howard County line, and then west over to Aspen Hills. So it includes the Burnt Mills, Four Corners, North Woodmore, the White Oak, Fairland, Burtonsville, Bricks, Cheney, Colesville, Cloverly, and Leisure World communities. So that's a little bit about the district and a little bit about me. I thought I'd go over a little bit of a presentation. I'm a data and numbers guy. I like to see different things, and so I'm sure you all have heard many stump speeches from candidates. But I think what sets me apart is that I really like to dive deeply into the trends and emerging issues in the county. So with that, I'll share my screen and share a little bit about the county and what's to come. So I apologize if you all have seen some of this information already, but I hope you all find it a little bit useful and informative. And then I'd love to answer any questions either about the presentation or about myself. So this is Montgomery County at a glance. This is some facts and figures that again, you may or may not have seen. So the first is that Montgomery County's operating budget is roughly $6 billion. That's bigger than some of our states, North Dakota and Rhode Island in particular, and South Dakota and Delaware there. So that's a pretty big budget there. But as you could see, our top two expenditures in our budget are pretty much spoken for. 46.6% is dedicated to MCPS. That's partly required by state law and maintenance of effort. And then another 10.5% is public safety. It's police, it's firefighters, first responders, and those kinds of things. And then it's everything else, including a sizable chunk that's dedicated to debt service for bonds and paying off capital financing for all the infrastructure that we're building in the county. So why does that matter? Well, first, because we're projected to grow by about 200,000 people over the next 20 to 30 years. So we need to be able to grow as a county and continue to meet the needs of those residents. So you can see we're just at about a little over 1 million right now. We'll be at about 1.2 by 2040, and a little bit more by 2050. So where are those people coming from? Well, in part, they're coming from internationally. You can see here that there's a decline in domestic migration. This area, as you all know, is fairly expensive to live in. And particularly with telework, people are finding it easier to remote work from other places. But even before that, you all could see that over the last few years, there's been a decline in domestic migration to this area. And so what we're really seeing is the net migration kind of really contributing to a lot of that growth. And we in the planning department expect those sort of trends to hold true over the next few decades. So in terms of international migration, here's where people are coming from. So it's a whopping 40% from Latin America, and another little over a third from Asia, and then other places. So these are the various countries of origin, of which El Salvador is number one, my mother's home country. So lots of people coming from there, and then Guatemala fifth. So where are we going to put all those people, and how are we going to be able to house all those people? That's one of the challenges that the county is currently facing. And this graph here is actually a little bit outdated. The actual number is actually closer to 4,000 now. So we need about 3,500 units to 4,000 units a year to be able to meet those population, to be able to house that increased population. And as you can see here on the left, we're nowhere near meeting that. In a good year, the last good year we had in 2014, we built over 3,500 units, but in more recent years, we've built less than 2,500, and in some years less than 2,000. So we're falling far short of our housing production goals. And we need to really ramp up our housing production of all types of housing, to be able to house all the people that are coming here, from, like I said, internationally or domestically. This is a little bit about where people where in the county people are going, and where the county is growing. So these are the state legislative districts. But you can see here the orange dots are essentially more people. And so you can see that a lot of people are locating in our urban areas, downtown Silver Spring, Bethesda, along the DC border, somewhat along the 29 corridor, but then also along the 270 corridor. That area has seen a lot of growth, with growth in the Up County and development in the Up County in particular. Here's how population is projected to grow. So again, sort of keeps in line with that same pattern. That big white sort of wedge that you see on the outskirts of the county, it's kind of like a horseshoe. That's mostly the agricultural reserve. We're not projecting a lot of growth there because the county simply doesn't want growth to go there. We want to concentrate growth along our transportation corridors, and other more urban, more dense areas. So here's a little bit about, again, sort of touching on how the demographics have changed over time. In the 1990s, you could see here that most of the county was predominantly white, or white majority, with the exception of a few areas around Silver Spring and White Oak, where there was no predominant group. Fast forward to 2020, and the county looks very different, as I'm sure you all can appreciate. There's no predominant group in large swaths of the county, both along the 270 corridor in Up County and also East County and Mid County. And then you have pockets of Black predominance and Black majority in the East County, and Hispanic majority in the Tacoma Langley area, the Wheaton area, and then pockets of Gaithersburg and Up County. And then the one Asian majority census tract there on the west side of 270, I guess near I think it's Potomac, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe North Potomac. So just to summarize about the demographic changes, our over 65 population is increasing, our under 5 population is falling as our birth rates. People are deciding to have children later in life, or forgo having children at all. We're increasing our diversity, but geographical segregation is a real thing, particularly along racial lines. Income and race are correlated and share a geographic pattern. So lower income people of the same ethnic group or background are clustering in certain parts of the county. And our population is mostly concentrated along the north-south corridors in southeastern parts of the county and 270. So what are we going to do about all this? Again, just going back to, how are we going to grow as a county, and where are we going to put people in the county? So this is a map that shows all the different zoning types in the county. So the council is really responsible for zoning, land use, and those kinds of issues. So you can see here that a big chunk of the county is single family only. Then we have agricultural, of course. We have parks and open space, and then a very, very small percentage of land. You can't even really see it on the map, but it's this orange color is multifamily. Less than 3% of our county is zoned for multifamily properties. At the same time, home ownership is declining in the county, particularly for people under age 35. It used to be that you could buy a modest-sized home in the county, or maybe an entry-level home in the county on a modest income, a middle income, and that's quickly not becoming the case. I mean, you could see here in the 90s, people under 35, 46% could purchase a home in the county. That's now down to 28%. That's a stark, it's steep decline. A lot of that has to do with home ownership affordability. Home values have quickly outpaced household incomes. And this is also a little bit outdated, in that the gap, particularly that we've seen over the past 2 years with the pandemic, has only made this wider as properties have been bid up, and you've seen properties really sell for high amounts over list. So just keep that in mind. At the same time, single family homes are getting larger. And so what you're seeing is developers building homes that are no longer what you might consider modest. In the 1950s, the average single family home was about 1,500 square feet. That's more than double. It's now the average single family home that's getting built in the county is 3,700 square feet. That's huge. And part of the reason for that is that if developers can only build single family homes, they're going to maximize their profit by building the largest home possible. So that's partly what's contributing to this increase in larger single family homes. At the same time, rental units are getting smaller. So there's fewer rental units for families, fewer 3-bedroom units, fewer 2-bedroom units, and you're seeing an increase in studios and 1-bedroom units over previous decades. So a lot of families are getting squeezed out of the county. And lastly, despite homes getting larger, you're also seeing more people living alone. People deciding for one reason or another not to cohabitate, either because their children have gotten older and moved away. Maybe they've divorced or lost a spouse. But people just deciding that they want to live alone. So there's plenty of extra space in our existing housing stock for different people and different families. But you're not necessarily seeing that reflected in the market. Just to touch on a little bit on the environment and transportation aspect of housing and land use policy, building dense urban developments, as you can see here in this map, reduces driving and increases pedestrian and bicyclist and transit access, transit use almost as much as transit access, proximity to transit. So essentially what this is saying is that the more dense or more urban an area, the more likely people are to use other forms of transportation, even if they're not in close proximity to, say, a metro station, for example. And on the environmental piece of why urban development and sustainable growth is important, I think this is a very important, clear example that a lot of people don't think about. Some of you might remember Pike and Rose before it was Pike and Rose. It was just a giant sea of gray parking and asphalt. And now you can see today it's a lot of green roofs, tall buildings, street trees, and stormwater features, bioretention cells, and those kinds of things. And so what you can actually see here is that by shifting from old sprawly developments like what existed at there, like commercial strip centers, to what exists today at Pike and Rose, you're able to reduce the stormwater runoff and contribute to the health of our bay and in our environment tremendously. But that's not enough. We need to do more. And that means, as I said before, in our single family areas and single family zones, allowing denser types of development, like you see here. These all may look like modest single family homes, but here's a secret: they're not. The image on the left, I believe, is a quadplex. It's actually 4 units. The 2 on the right are duplexes. So they are essentially multifamily units that look no different than a lot of single family houses that you might find in other parts of the county. And here's just an example of what is currently allowed and what is not. So you could build the house on the left, just modest single family home with a 2-car garage. You could build that in most parts of the county, particularly anywhere that's zoned for single family, roughly 37% of the county. But what you can't build is you can't build a similarly sized, similarly looking duplex like the one you see on the right. And the only difference is that on the right, it has a second set of doors and it's a totally separate unit. So this is the fight that the county is currently having over Thrive 2050, which many of you may have heard about. And these are important issues I would submit to you all, because again, housing affordability and our ability to retain and attract workers for your businesses really depends on affordability throughout the county. So this is just kind of a conversation starter, conversation topic. Again, my background is in land use and housing policy and transportation in particular, but during my time in public service, I've worked on all sorts of issues, particularly issues related to the business community, such as tax credits and other incentives for businesses. I've worked on environmental policy, but really, I think this here is probably the most salient issue right now facing our county, facing our business community, and something that everyone should be thinking about. So that is pretty much the bulk of my presentation. I hope I didn't go through that too fast. But if you all have any questions, I'd love to answer any questions. Otherwise, I can continue talking about myself.